2013 was a year full of pleasant surprises in the world of video games. Games that came out of nowhere from small indie developers and provided us with some of the most memorable gaming experiences of the year. But it was also a year where many AAA titles let us down. Whether it was because they weren't as good as the hype led us to believe they would be, or they provided nothing new for the series, or they were completely broken right out of the gate. This was a surprisingly competitive top 5 list, and I needed to enlist the help of fellow GameFront writers Ross Lincoln and Phil Hornshaw to help talk about the games I hadn't played extensively. But here are the top 5 most disappointing games of 2013. Number 5. Sonic Lost World. If you're a Sonic fan, then like me, you likely nearly flipped your shit for Sonic Lost World when you first saw that trailer. Sure, it looked a lot like Mario Galaxy, but hey, that's alright, because Super Mario Galaxy is amazing, and if they can manage to pull off Sonic's trademark speed and spectacle in conjunction with Mario Galaxy's astounding level design, well then I'm on board for that. Not to mention that Sonic's just coming off one of his best games in years in Sonic Generations, so there was good reason to be hyped for Sonic Lost World. Unfortunately, the game's uninspired level design, slowed down sense of speed, and poorly implemented parkour skills make for a pretty disappointing showing for the Blue Blur in 2013. It's far from the worst Sonic game in recent memory, but given how good Sonic Generations was and how high the bar was set, Lost World is certainly one of the most disappointing. Number 4. Beyond Two Souls. Heavy Rain had its share of flaws, but many would argue that it was at least one of the PlayStation 3's most memorable exclusives. At the very least, Heavy Rain was successful enough to garner hype for Quantic Dream's next outing, Beyond Two Souls. It did not live up to the hype. Beyond's out-of-order story made the plot unnecessarily convoluted, characters that were at odds with each other in one scene were star-crossed lovers in the next, and your actions really didn't start having any plot-related consequences until the last quarter of the game. While Heavy Rain was a love-it-or-hate-it kind of game, Beyond firmly plants itself in the meh category. Number 3. Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 is not only the best looking game on this list, it's also one of the prettiest games of the year. Hell, it's a top contender for the best competitive multiplayer game of the year. When it works. And that's the problem. We're now nearly 2 months after the release of Battlefield 4, and there are still reports of single-player memory wipes, hard crashes, problematic netcode, all stuff that might not be all that surprising if this was a budget shooter we were talking about, but this is frickin' Battlefield 4, the #1 contender for the heavyweight first-person shooter championship of the world. It shouldn't happen. Regardless of whether Battlefield 4 gets fixed in 2014, it will be remembered in 2013 as a hot, disappointing mess. Number 2. SimCity. What the hell went wrong with SimCity 2013? We obviously know about the problems caused when Electronic Arts and Maxis failed to anticipate server demand for the game they decided to make always online. This resulted in one of the most spectacularly botched game launches in history, with deleted or corrupted saves, network outages, and difficulty connecting to servers among its endemic problems. Ultimately, EA and Maxis were forced to deactivate a sizable number of features just to get the thing to run, essentially robbing players of the game they paid to play. And even when they did get to play, players found that SimCity 2013 was but a shadow of its former self. Modding was out, so too was save scumming, the ability to trigger a disaster or random event, cities were smaller, and having to wait for your friends in order to build certain projects such as large airports meant that you were at the mercy of your fellow players' work and real life schedules instead of just your own. So yes, it was a shock that EA released such a broken mess of a game. But then again, the game was designed from the ground up to be a broken mess. Nothing is a bigger letdown than that. Nothing except for... Number 1. Aliens, Colonial Marines. For fans of the Aliens franchise, Aliens Colonial Marines sounded like the game we've been waiting for all our lives. Developer Gearbox Software threw around tons of Aliens trivia and lore while talking about the game. Sega got the film's concept artist Sid Mead to come out to preview events, and Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford showed an awesome demo at E3 2012. Then the game came out, filled with stupid dialogue, a nonsensical story, and tons of derpy aliens. Half the time they didn't even attack you. Most of the trouble with Colonial Marines was that it was yet another not very good Aliens game in a line of not very good Aliens games. But that was greatly compounded by the hype attached to it and what turned out to be lies from Gearbox about the game. That demo from E3? Not even in the game. Turns out, all the Aliens trivia in the world still doesn't add up to a decent game. And that's it! Now's the part of the show where you tell us how awesome Battlefield 4 is and why it doesn't deserve to be on this list. Or why The Last of Us is the most disappointing game of the year. Let us know why in the comments, and please, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.